Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast with me, Ben Talon, illustrator and creativity coach, founder of the Creative Condition, artist and writer. I bring 20 years of creative industry experience and a lifelong love of creativity, a fundamental pillar of human happiness, to you through ongoing personal exploration and the shared experiences of others. You'll get a nourishing mix of creative industry professionals and people far and wide using creativity in ways that can take our learning to the next level so we can maximise our unique blend. The show's been supported from day one by Illustration X, a tremendous illustration agency representing a shining global roster of illustrators and animators over at illustrationx.com. The music for the show is by Dirty Freud, who you can listen to now on all good streaming services. And for everything else, for my coaching, resources and inspiration, head to thecreativecondition.com.
But it's a reminder that you just don't know where your art is going to go. You don't know what your art is going to do. And even if you create something with a particular purpose, there's something very generous and very sacrificial about putting your art out into the world and just allowing it to reach whoever is going to take hold of it.
Today I'm joined by designer Micah Purnell and photographer Harris to talk about presence through the vehicle of their beautiful book, Tethering Presence. It's an incredible piece of work. We're going to get into themes of mobile communications, what they're doing to our lives, our own experiences of that, and why this project was the right work of art to communicate that. It's a beautiful conversation. It's one of the favourite I've had so far. You're going to enjoy this. Is the Creative Condition podcast. How are you doing, guys? My name is Ben Talon. I join you today proudly holding my copy of Tethering Presence, an incredible book created by photographer Harris and designer Micah Purnell. You might remember Micah from way back on the podcast. I don't have the number to hand. I will dig it out during this intro. Shame on me, not preparing properly there. Great couple of guys. This is a deep conversation. We get into mobile communications, the distance between us when we communicate, to quote a Blur lyric to my absolute shame there. I think that's from Under the West Way. Beautiful lyric. And just pertinent for our times, you know, we are in a moment when I think we're all realising exactly what these mobile phones of ours that are magic. It's wizardry, it's Pandora's box, and I think they're taking us to a place where we need to evaluate what we want from them, how much control we actually have over our minds when these things are in our pockets or in our hands. And there's no two better people to speak to than Harris and Micah when it comes to that very subject. So this book is beautiful. It's here right now. I'm going to read you the blurb in a moment. First of all, I'm going to thank the very kind founding sponsor of this show, been with me since day one, helped me create the bloody thing. Illustration X, they're a great illustration and animation agency. London, Shanghai, New York, they're all over the show. They're all over the world representing the world's greatest illustrators, artists and animators, and you can check them out at illustrationx.com. I'd also like to shout out the Ukrainian Institute, who are supporting the brave and embattled Ukrainian creative community in this horrific time of war. I continue to support them because I am continually inspired by the bravery of the artists, the designers, the thinkers in Ukraine who refuse to quote Olya Protosova, who I had on the show about this very topic, are not prepared to sit in a damn bomb shelter all day. Powerful words from Olya that I wanted to share with you there. That episode is 212 if you want to go back and check it out. And by the way, Micah Purnell is at episode 116 in the archive of this project, talking about advertising and ethics. It's a joy to have him back on the show. And before I forget and ramble off on a tangent about Micah's work, a big thank you to Paradiso Institute, who you can check out at paradisoinstitute.org, banging the drum for bold, brave, creative leadership in our industry at a time when we swim in a sea of same, thanks to the homogenization of automation and many other reasons within our cultures. Go and check them out. They're doing beautiful work, paradisoinstitute.org. So let's get into it. I hope you enjoyed recent episodes. If you do want to work with me one-to-one, you can join me in my coaching program. Get in touch to talk about how that might look. We can go one-to-one. We can talk about groups. We can go one-off pit stop session. We can look at a 6-month program. We'll look at 12 months. We'll look at working ongoing. It's kind of customizable. but I can guarantee you that I will elevate your story, reveal your story, I will elevate your creativity, I will up your motivation, I will get you thinking differently about your place in this world, and how you take things forward and how you get on a pure path, because I know so many of us come unstuck. We get stuck, we get demotivated, we get bitter, we get pissed off, we start to question our creativity. If that's you, let's have a chat. ben@bentalon.com. Check out all my work around creativity at thecreativecondition.com. And if you do get a second, please do rate, review, subscribe to the show. It's a massive help. Tell a friend if you enjoy any of these episodes. Let's have a conversation. So, Tethering Presence, New York City. Micah Purnell's provocative truisms paired with Richard Harris's street photography of New York, unified by a smartphone in each photo, exploring presence in a connected world. It's beautiful. There are two books. There's a London version and a New York version, and they're going to tell you the story today on this episode. Here's the upshot. Here's the blurb. A continued collaboration between artist and designer Micah Purnell and photographer Richard Harris. Tethering Presence, New York City. The second book in Tethering Presence series builds on their first volume, shot in London, introducing broader themes and the first use of colour. Set entirely in New York, the book pairs evocative street photography with poetic truisms that reflect on connection, presence, and the complexities of modern life, inviting readers to pause, reflect, and adopt an empathetic eye in an increasingly distracted world. Now, we all know that one, don't we? These little things in our pockets are completely fucking up our brains. They're leading us into a place where we are distracted, disconnected from our loved ones, even though we're in the same room. They're giving us scatterbrained bursts of anxiety. They're giving us imposter syndrome. They're making us compare ourselves to the people that we want to connect with and ultimately driving us apart. I feel quite negative about them. I'm not going to lie. There is, of course, a smaller percentage of beauty there. I wouldn't be able to have this conversation with you today was it not for technology. I wouldn't be able to help myself out of an anxious rut through listening to psychologists and people who know more than I do about the condition and about the thought patterns in the human brain. I wouldn't be able to connect with other designers the way that I do through LinkedIn, through Instagram and other platforms. So it's a mixed bag, and that's what we're going to be getting into today. We're going to be sharing our personal journey on this. We're going to be talking about observations, talking about the creativity and the opportunity within anything that's negative. There's always a way to move from fear to curiosity. That's what Tina Rapp told me recently. Tina's coming up on the show soon. She's another coach based in Germany. We're training together with the Paradiso Institute to help them with our coaching. That's exciting to me. So there are things that are coming out of this problem. Any problem we have, if we can use our creativity, if we can use our curiosity to make things better, then it doesn't necessarily have to be bad. Anyway, I've waffled enough. You've had all the notes. Let's get into this wonderful conversation with Micah and Harris. I know you guys have worked together over the years. So tell me that story. Like, what's your connection? How did you guys end up collaborating on various things?
I was invited to a creative retreat, and I remember Micah was one of the speakers, but he had COVID, so he couldn't actually be at the retreat in person. So he did his talk like over Zoom. And I remember while he was talking, I was just like, who the hell is this guy? Like, I need to get in touch with this guy. So as soon as his session finished, I was like running around to the organizers, like, who knows who Micah is? Like, who knows who Micah is? And then found this lady, Marika. I'm trying to convince her that I'm not crazy and like I'm a creative. I really want to reach out to Micah. She's like, I don't know, I'm not sure. But eventually she gives me his email. So I shoot him an email. And as soon as my email goes, I get an email in from Micah. Almost exactly the same email that I just sent him. Like, hey, I checked out your work. Like, I really love your style. It'll be so good to collaborate on something together. So then we just started messaging from there.
Love that synchronicity.
Yeah, that's kind of yeah. When you were telling that story, I kind of thought it was me that sent the email, but then you brought it in at the end. I was like, yeah, I was going through the participants of the retreat just to see who was there, and yeah, Harry's kind of like stood out as yeah, someone whose work I really admired, and I was just like, oh, just love your work. Send an email, and then like I said, like one came back the other way, and yeah, we started chatting, and then we were able to work together on something up here. So then we were able to meet in person,
Mm.
work on that as a project, which was for the home restaurant and bar
Mm.
in Manchester. And so yeah, Harris took a load of photos of the staff and the area and the scene and the vibe of the place. And yeah, we plastered it all over the walls and yeah, filled the space, made it. Yeah, there was a wall in there that was. I remember looking at it when I started working with them and thinking, it just looks like a doctor's surgery. I said,
Yeah.
what's behind that wall? And they were like, oh, it's the cellar. I mean, it wasn't, it didn't go downstairs, but yeah, it was just office and cellar and where they keep the drinks and stuff. But it was just a big white kind of two walls, a corner set, and I just said, can we put some big kind of posters straight onto the wall, black and white photography, some words, and yeah, that's how it began. It was a nice project.
Well, so what was it that drew you to Harris's work? You know, you said that you saw it and you sort of felt drawn and wanted to reach out. I'm always interested in those kind of almost intuitive, the magnetism that we feel sometimes, you know, when we see something and it just speaks to us on a level that's a bit deeper.
Yeah, I mean, first off, it was just really good quality. Um, the photography that I was looking at must have been off your website or your socials,
Mm.
but it was the way that you shot. Everything was framed great. It's just all of that was there as well. But it was the people in the shots. There was some humanity about them that I was drawn to. It just kind of, it clearly had your eye,
Mm.
and there was just something about it that made me look at them, or the way that you look at the world with empathy, or the way that you caught them. Obviously, you're taking lots of pictures, and the ones that you're sharing with us are these kind of really gentle ones potentially,
Mm.
or
No, I mean, what really spoke to me then is the empathy bit, because I know obviously, Mike, I'm very familiar with your work, having shared a building together at one point, and also, you know, having interviewed you before. And also, you know, something that really leapt out of me from the book, which we'll get onto in a moment, Tethering Presence, but was the four opposing themes in your work. I'd never come across that before. I didn't know that that was a kind of underpinning thing, but it makes so much sense. Mystery and uncertainty, privatization and common good, scarcity and abundance, fallibility and perfection. I love that. That framework is beautiful and really captures the essence of the same humanity in your work that you speak about there in Harris's. So I think with creativity, when we sort of land on one of those big drivers, those big human themes, and see that in the work of another, it's a powerful thing, isn't it?
I mean, it's interesting for me because long before I knew Micah, I would walk through his artwork. I used to be up in Wembley quite a lot, and I remember walking through and seeing like the banners with the work on the stairs leading up to Wembley, um, and being quite moved that something so it felt very tender and warm and welcoming and honest but positive. Um, and that felt so different to the kind of stuff that you normally see, plastered around. Like everything's like trying to grab your attention, trying to get you to buy something, trying to get you to do something. But your work has a way of just gently touching something kind of deep inside for me anyway. Um, so it felt like such a I still feel very humbled to hear you talk about my work, and I felt very humbled that you reached out to me on that day at the artist retreat. Because to me, you're just this like you're this giant, and I know I mean, Micah, so he's such a humble guy, and he's so like unassuming. But I think your work actually speaks volumes, and I think you occupy space um, in your work occupies space in a way that I think extends beyond just its square footage. I think it does something to an area, and I think it does something to the people in that area because I've been in Wembley before your work was there, and there's a drastic change. There's a different kind of like atmospheric pressure to it since your work's been there. And I think that's true. Like when I see your work in different spaces, I think that that's a consistent thing that I've noticed. I still feel really humbled that I get to work with you. It's a real privilege for me.
Cheers,
You know,
mate.
just to just to pick up on that, you know, it's when I lived in Manchester for a combination of 9 years across two stints. I now live down in Salisbury, which is lovely, very quaint, but it's also very safe. It's very, so I always think of it as being like a lot of Americans imagine all of England to be when they watch something
Mm,
like Murder, She Wrote. And what I love when I come back to Manchester to see my brother or come up for any work reason is being reacquainted with Micah's work, even if it's just the stickers like you are enough and seeing them around. And it's great because it's just exactly what you said there, Harris, about Micah's work. It's that it's seeing it at scale, it's seeing it in public, and just it's just so counter to everything that we're used to seeing. But more importantly, it lands deeper. You know,
mm,
the simplicity of it really does. There's few people, but it's that beautiful blend of great writing,
mhm,
observation, and empathy, and
mhm,
then of course the craft. You know, like Micah mentioned there about your work being well framed and about it being very accomplished. I would say the same thing, and that's really what really intrigued me about the collaboration between you guys because there's a resonant humanity, but that underlying humanity is just incredibly powerful, and it's what's ever since the day I went to art college and started to learn a bit more about the arts than what was on my PlayStation 1,
mm,
I was introduced to people who had captured this, something about this, the confusion of just being human and the
mm.
condition, you know? So tell me about your professional, your sort of day-to-day work, Harris. Do you work commercially as well? And is this a departure from what you do, or is this indicative of all of your work?
So I've just made the transition last year from being full time in the creative space to I now work for a charity. So we work with young people who are facing barriers to employment, getting them into education, employment, or training, which is kind of like a return to form because my first kind of career was in like youth and social work. So I've come back to that space. I felt like that was really missing from my kind of daily routines. Um, but in terms of my photography practice, um, I started out, or I suppose I got known, I got more kind of popular working with street photography. So I think it was around 2015 or 2016. I've been shooting street for a couple of years, and Nikon um, reached out to me and just said like, "We've seen some of your work. We love what you're doing. Can we send you some cameras? Just carry on, just shoot." So that's kind of like uh, I was working with them. They would just send me cameras every now and again, and I just shoot street for a few years, and um, that's kind of what I got known for. But then I also do portrait work, which yeah, obviously has its different kind of styles and techniques and different contexts, but feels very similar to me in terms of what I'm trying to achieve. Whether I'm on the street or whether I'm working with an individual doing portraits, I'm trying to draw something out that feels true and that feels maybe a little bit hidden beneath the surface. That isn't necessarily the most obvious thing or the first thing that you see when you encounter a person or a scene. Um, and so, yeah, so for me, this book, I mean, it's just a great honor to be able to kind of put your work together in a printed form, and then to work alongside someone like Micah, who has such an incredible body of work, and also just such an incredible like ethos and what he brings to his craft, um, was a real privilege. But it felt like a coming together of the the type of work that I strive to do, the type of like slightly deeper kind of thought-provoking work that I really want to put out in the world.
Tethering presence. So let's get into the project because it's fantastic. I managed to, I'd say, carve out. it wasn't carved out. I actually had a nice balanced day today, but I was able to sit in the park at the bottom of my street for half an hour with this book today, and let the
Nice.
dog potter around and just really, really drink it in. And it's wonderful. It's very thought provoking. If you wouldn't mind, give us a little snapshot of the project, and I'd love to hear about its origin and what was what drove you to want to do this.
Well, as much as I'm known for doing all the outdoor stuff, bringing the humanities to commercial spaces, using billboards and building banners and all the rest of it for positivity and social critique, I've also, for probably the last 10 years, been making books from 300-page art books for the likes of Ghislaine Howard, or a book that has just recently been accepted by Manchester University Special Collection,
Wow.
which is pretty prestigious. I couldn't believe it got accepted because they're ranked top five for their collections in the world. And so these are books as objects, and so because I've got this kind of running alongside the other stuff that I'm doing, always with fingers in pies and always with side projects happening. Yeah, when I met Harris and saw his work, it was actually like the initial kind of thought for the book was just me like looking again at his work. I don't. I was just looking at his work. I was just like, oh, and have another little nose in. It was just a reel that had maybe 15 photos, just flicking through. Um, and I kind of just thought they look like he's taken them with everyone on the phone. Um, so I checked with him and I was like, you've taken, all these photos. 'Cause there's a phone in shot at some point. There's a smartphone in shot at some point. Have you done it on purpose? And he was like, no, it's just life, innit? It is what it is. So I was like, oh, I got an idea. Do you want to make a book? And he was like, "Oh, what are you thinking?" I was like, just send me all your photos of people on the phone that you've got, and he did. He was like, okay. We went with like just a tiny idea of just putting a little bit of money together, doing a really small run, and making something happen. And sure enough, he sent them through, and I started playing, and um, yeah, I decided to put a few words with it. And this was the first book, and it turned out it was pretty much all shot in London, bar a couple, which was painful, but we decided to take them out. There were some great shots, but there was maybe just two or three, just to center it on that. And so that became the first book with just a few quotes from me, and that was kind of centered on presence and connection. And we talked for hours and hours and hours over months. And then I think I was putting it together, and he was in New York. We were working together while he was in New York. He's in a coffee shop and I'm in my office and we're chatting through again. And I was like, I've just had another idea. And he's like, what are you thinking? I was like, take loads of photos while you're in New York. So he got to it. And then for this one, it's quite different in terms of the text input from my side. It's quite sparse in the first, and I just kind of like felt like I had permission to be let loose on the second one, which was loads of fun. And Harris was really generous with me, kind of just throwing text over his photos, and that was interesting because there was moments where he's like, "What are you doing, putting that over there?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, good point.
I've
Oh,
labored
okay,
hard for that. You've
yeah,
covered it
yeah,
all.
yeah."
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
had
yeah.
to strip bits back, but that was because I collaborate in terms of clients, and we do a back and forth like that. So I'm kind of like I find that reasonably, straightforward. But then collaboration on a kind of art piece as one, this
Mm,
book was more grappling, which was
yeah.
a
More
really
dynamic.
yeah,
Yeah.
interesting kind of like back and forth. And he was generous enough to allow me to make my arguments, and then he would make his. And there was one piece that we went over and over and over again, which I think is it the second? No, it's not. It's in there somewhere anyway. But there was a shot, and it was a landscape piece, and there's there's a number of characters on it, and I shared the shot cropped in half, which looked stunning. It's a stunning photo, but I did crop it because there was so much. There's so much kind of what's the word? Dynamism in this shot. Like there's
Mm,
echo of hands, echo of people, echoes
yeah,
of like the composition of it was just so tight and
it's
powerful and
dense. Yeah,
punchy, like a like an ad shot for something. It was on a shot on a tube, and he was like, "Yeah, but you can't do that because look how the eye works when you've got the landscape
yeah,
piece." And we backed and forth for ages and ages, and I totally got what he was saying, and um, I think we ended up cropping it, making a compromise,
yeah.
and then realizing that the crop that I'd made, there was no phone in it. It was a Oyster card, so we had to go back anyway. So it was kind of like a waste of time, but it wasn't a
Uh,
waste of time because
it
obviously we
wasn't.
got to know each other.
Yeah,
We were like back and forth, and yeah,
it was actually really brilliant because I think that was actually the moment when I realized that, you know, we're both creatives, we're both visual artists, but we're actually speaking two different languages. And that was the shot, that was the conversation that really helped me understand how you're approaching everything. Um, but for Micah, there's such a skill in like distilling down into like what is the essential point of this? Like, what is the message? How can the viewer get this in like 2 seconds? Um, and for me as a photographer, a photograph for me is powerful when I'm actually slowing the viewer down. When someone wants to come back to a photo and linger on it again and again and again. And so in a lot of my work, I'm trying to pay attention to, like you say, you know, the framing, the cropping, the space, the layers, the kind of like repetitions within the image. And as soon as you start losing those, for me, it's like, okay, we're diminishing the amount of like engagement that a viewer's going to have with this. And then for me, as a in a printed form, as a book, the worst case scenario for me is when someone picks up, you know, a book that I've contributed to and they just flip through it in 30 seconds and like, yeah, yeah, it's nice. It's like, no, I want you to take time. So for me, that was really informative. And it helped me think about that as well when I was out shooting them. And I would kind of frame an image a particular way, but then I would kind of see Micah's text like in the sky and I'd be like, okay, let me just run back a few meters so I've got some negative space here. Um, so that was a really, yeah, it was great, informative, like, yeah, incident for me, not just in terms of how we work together, but challenging the way that I'm thinking and looking at things as well. So
yeah.
yeah,
And sometimes I think some of it was experimental as well, where I wasn't 100% sure what I was arguing was gonna be right until it's until it's published. Did I not tell you?
no.
I mean,
I think you've summed up a lot of modern life right there with that
That
comment.
is incredible. That's incredible. I'm laboring over everything. I'm like, am I thinking about this correctly? Like, do I really want to? No, do I want to push back here? Because I don't know. Like, and you're just like, let's just give it a shot. Let's see where this lands.
I love
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember one. I think it's a
Amazing.
underground shot. Where I put a text. It was a double page spread, and it says mystery will guide you." And
I
you were
remember this.
kind
Yeah,
of a little bit like, I loved the shot that you took,
yeah.
the perspective, the people on the other side, and everything. And then obviously I've overlaid it slap bang center right over it, making sure not to go over kind of like interesting detail, people and bits and bobs like that.
hmm
But at the same time, there was this dialogue between us where we were kind of wondering whether people would see the photo because I've
mm
put the text
hmm
so blatantly across the front of it. And I felt that people would just want to see the photo more because I'd done that.
mm
Now I'd have to ask a bunch of people to see whether that little experiment came true or not. But I think so. I
mm
think that you put something over something and you're like, hang on a minute, what's behind there?
What's behind it?
What's in between the spaces and so on. So yeah, it was a fun project.
Presence is something it's take you know it's a big word. There's a lot we could work with there, but for me personally, recently it's so to be totally candid. So last year I had quite a tricky year with anxiety. Nothing
Mm,
too severe, but for me personally, more than I'd known in the past. Combination of reasons: fatigue from twin parenthood,
mm,
pace of life demands not stepping aside and allowing myself a moment to reflect, to rest properly,
mm,
to find headspace. So much better this year, having done that more, started meditating a lot more, really started to take care of that, and just a little more time out of work. This beautiful quote from Kester Bruin in your book. I'll read it quickly. This beautiful series of photographs and words is a rich seam, intimate and unguarded. It asks us to look again, to reconsider the relationship between our tools, our inner lives, and the sites of our attention, a means of meditation, not one about judging the actions of others, but about of seeing our habits and anxieties reflected back at us. That's so powerful because that's something that leapt out of the book to me, and I want to know if I'm accurate with this, but is it's the lack of judgment. It's
mm,
and I think this is something that great photography and great writing presents us with, and your two works do so effectively, is give us an idea or a moment in time and then do that beautiful thing where it's handed over to the viewer to truly interpret that and look at that
mm,
reflection. Am I near the mark with that? Because I think that's achieved marvelously in this book.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me it was kind of quite important because I know for sure a lot of my early work was critiquing technology, um, which I think probably made people feel conscious and possibly bad, certainly aware of the negative impact of the way we use certain things. But for this, I didn't want it to be like that. I didn't want people to be feeling bad about it. And Harry's kind of helped that come to life, guided me a bit in making sure that that was the case, especially when I'm making my writings. And there's a few more cutting, cutting's maybe a little bit strong, but um, pieces in the second book,
More challenging, yeah.
but challenging, yeah.
Hmm.
But certainly, I didn't want anyone to feel guilty. We're all in it, and yeah, reflection. In fact, I went through it today as a reminder. I've not looked at it for a while, and it's not how I remember it, to be honest. With the writings, it's more. It seems like um, a kind of an expression of love for humanity, and
Mm,
uh, a celebration of now. And the phone seems to fade into the background a little bit. I kind of hadn't
yeah.
noticed at the time. You know, so the phone was the device that enabled the concept to come alive and to be, you know, to be drawn out and to move and explore. Um, but yeah, Harris.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because when we were putting the first bit together, we literally spent hours. We kind of like we brought the images together, we had a mock-up, and we were talking about like placement and stuff, but then, that maybe was like half an hour. And then we spent like an hour, hour and a half talking about the title. We had a number of different working titles, and we kind of begun to kind of circle around tethering presence. Um, and it really forced us to think about like, okay, what's our intent? Like we have these images, we have this kind of concept, we have these words, but like what's our heart behind it? And we wrestled with the idea of what is it to be present? And we went back and forth on like obviously we've all been affected by social media. We've all felt the kind of ebb and flow of like addiction and the manipulation of the algorithms. And we've seen Instagram go from this great space where everyone's sharing images and it feels creative and it feels encouraging to now where it just feels like I'm just watching news basically. And the worst bits, the smash cuts of negative news. So we were talking about like both the benefits of technology and the benefits of these mobile devices, being able to be in contact with people on the other side of the planet, being able to connect with family members and loved ones who, you know, you might not get to see again. Um, but then also some of the stuff that we lose at the same time. So we have this like device immediately ever present with us, but then in some ways we're trading off what we're able to bring to those relationships immediately in front of us because we're getting sucked into the algorithm again. We're getting sucked into online shopping. We're getting sucked into just like short form content. And meanwhile, we're sitting with people that we love, and we're missing some of those moments. So we wanted to be honest that like we wrestle with it ourselves, and it's kind of a ubiquitous phenomenon now. It's not going anywhere. It's a part of our existence, a part of our lives, um, and we spoke about that kind of tension. And the reality is like we're not trying to make anyone feel bad. Like we're all in this boat together. But we wanted to raise awareness. I think just like let's just be a little bit more conscious. Like let's be a little bit more conscientious. And I think there's a similar thing. Like when I'm out taking pictures, I'm really trying not to be. I don't want to be critical. I don't want to be judgmental. I don't particularly like taking pictures of people who are just really hard up because it feels like an exploitation of someone else's struggle. Um, I'm really interested in capturing moments that, for all intents and purposes, are incredibly ordinary, but they carry in them some weight of beauty, and magnitude that it's so easy to miss if we're moving just a bit too quickly. I just want to encourage us to slow down a little bit and to see some of those glimmers, um, of magnificence in the perfectly ordinary. Like one of my favorite images, which I think we put on the back cover of the first book, um, yeah, is the guy on his phone at King's Cross. King's Cross Station, notoriously busy, and I had all of these crowds swirling around me, and I noticed this guy. I noticed his long coat, and then it was almost like this sea of people parted, and it just felt like it was him alone in that moment. Um, and that's one of the images where you can't see the phone, but you just know from the pose, like we're all in this hunched over pose all of the time. So it's there, and there's something kind of metaphorical in that as well about like we're all here, but parts of us aren't here. Um, Also, but then also because of these devices, the people that we care about, the people that we're thinking about, are also here with us, even though they're not here. Um, so there's all of this like interplay with these different layers of the reality of our like modern lives. Um, and I loved how, sometimes Micah would select images and I'd think, oh, that's one of my throwaways, man. Like I really had to fight. He said, like, send me everything. And I was like, Mike, I can't send you everything, man. Let me edit. Let me do a call. He's like, no, no, no. Don't call. Send me everything. And he kept on picking images. And I'm thinking, this is not great. Like, why would you pick this? But then when he puts his words to it, it's like he cracks open this world that I can't see on my own. And I think that that's the magic of what you do, Micah. Like you have this sight that elevates, um, and it connects. You connected me to moments that I felt no affinity for, even though I was there and I took the picture. I saw something in that moment and I wanted to record it, but then when I was looking back at it, I was like, nah, there's nothing here. It's not of value. And then you just touch it with your words, and suddenly it becomes something that I want to keep forever. Do you know what I mean? I want to share with people. I want to offer to people as a gift and say like, look at how amazing this is. Um, yeah.
I love hearing the stories behind the photos. I'll see a photo and I'll just be mesmerized by it, and there'd be a character in a particular position, and I'll just go, how on earth? What happened there? And so this photo that you just described, the
Mm,
King's Cross Station with him on his own, I didn't know there was people swirling around you. It feels like not lonely, maybe isolated. No,
isolated,
isolated doesn't necessarily mean
solitary.
negative in this. Yeah, solitary. I think it is the only photo. where you don't see a bit of a phone, a bit of a
Mm.
smartphone, apart from one other where you see its shadow.
Shadow. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so knowing that, but there you go. That's what you've done. You've you made me feel that this was this photo, but
Hmm.
all around you was all sorts going on. But you managed to draw that out and make it a real calm, kind of beautiful moment.
Mm.
Because this guy might have been having a beautiful moment. Who knows? Maybe he was
Yeah.
texting say, "I won't, I won't be back for tea on time," or who knows what. But all those moments are just moments of life that could be straight out of a film. And I think these look like shots that are part of a film, almost all of them.
Mm.
And
Thank you, man.
that's why there's four covers for each book. Because we couldn't like pick the best shot for the cover. There's some that are like at a distance and some close up. But yeah, beautiful stuff.
Beautifully articulated, by the way, Harris. I love how you described that wonderfully poetically.
Thank you.
I there's I get a sense of quiet loss when I look at a lot of these images, but then I have to check
Mm.
myself because, as you alluded to there, Micah, we can never truly know what somebody's up to on that device, and there is that paradox that you speak of, Harris, where it might be an intimate moment. Maybe somebody's reflecting on an engagement that's happened a day ago and then they have to be apart, but they're in love and they're sharing messages. Or it might just be somebody abusing a fellow football fan on Twitter. So you're kind of like, what's the message here? And I think that ultimately, like you say, it's capturing humanity in its present moment. And it requires not just presence to critique that moment, but for me, more importantly, it's that reflection. And this is where art is so powerful. You could read a brilliant comment piece, let's say in the Guardian or some other reasonable journalistic platform, and it could be brilliantly written. And I'm a writer and I love great writing, but you can never come close to the sparsity of a great photograph that leaves it enough open ended to the viewer. And then when you couple that with gems like You Are Now,
Mm.
like as a writer, it's
Mm.
like, yes, that's just fantastic writing. So those two mediums coming together to present you with that moment and that invitation, it's beautiful because then as a father, I have to then go, right, tonight I can't be pouncing on my phone every time I see a calendar update or
Yeah.
I think, is there a new email there that might be a new commission? All of these reasons are kind of noble for going on the phone, but what it asks of us is an intentionality to curate that so that we're getting the best from this kind of magic, which it is in a sense. When you think about what technology is, it really is a form of magic when it's used effectively.
Mm.
I'm going to stop short of quoting Spider Man, but you get where I'm going. um, but I'm not. That's not really leading to a question. But we are. I feel like we are at a kind of cultural moment, a collective moment. We're at this crossroads at the moment. I see it all the time, and I have to really stop my kind of doom spiral brain when I'm on a tube. And I actually counted up recently because I was considering a short story based on this. But I was on a tube and I counted 20 out of 24 people on their phones in a moment.
Hmm.
There was me and three others that weren't on their phones. And I was interested. I would have liked to have talked to the other three people as to why they weren't on their phones and where they'd been that day,
Mm.
where they were going and
Why didn't
everything
you?
else. I was tired. I'd done a coaching session and I was wiped out.
Fair, fair enough. Fair enough.
But all of this just to say that we are at a moment where we are in grave danger of losing the presence. Yet
Hmm.
at the same time, I also sense resistance to that rising up through great projects like this. I think a lot of people have reached a saturation point now with social media and digital communications where we're beginning to almost rewild some of that presence. Is that something that you've recognized too?
Yeah, I was at the NEC on Saturday. There's a National Photography and Videography show, I think it was, and there was a talk there, and the guy shared his work, and I could just see it from a distance. I was just passing momentarily, and it was a shot of a person, beautifully taken, but it was like a dining room scene, and they just held up their phone, and must have been taking a selfie, and I think it was called. It might have been social media or selfie or something like that. But yeah, it's obviously it's people are conscious of it and people are aware of it, and I'm aware of it, and the book kind of came about because, and a lot of my work is because I'm steeped in it. I'm not better than it. I've not found a way out. I have little things that I attempt to implement, but I'm no better than anybody else. But people are asking the question: is there a way to manage this better? Is there a way to use it in a way that's more respectful of other people around us, but for ourselves as well? Like you say, it's like 24/7. In fact, I've just booked myself onto a silent retreat, and it's less to stop me speaking, but more to have a break from being fed constant. I say being fed. I feed myself. I'm consuming constantly, and I need a break, from the digital, the screens. Like I say, I'm okay when I'm with people. I can keep it to one side. When I'm with the family or the kids, I can keep it to one side. I might nip to the toilet as a little kind of like get out. I'm still, I can still sense it. Like, oh, I could just do a little check, but I might be hiding. And I'm not perfect. I won't always be like that. I'll be doing it in front of them as well. But I've, little things that might kind of, be a way to avoid it. So I'm not so bad when I'm with people, but as soon as I'm not, boom, I'll be watching a film, I'll be consuming, doom scrolling, scrolling just like the next person. But yeah, there's, and trying all those other things and different phones and ways of reducing it. It is hard work. It's designed to keep us there. We all know it and we all carry on. But maybe we can do a little bit to save our sanity. Who knows?
It's interesting when I said before I used to work in like youth and social work, and I remember around the advent of Instagram, I was working with loads of teenagers. I think at that point, my youth group was like 120 um, teenagers, and I could I could hear, I could see the like anxiety rising, the depression rising, um, the just the lack of self-worth like growing and growing. And I was kind of like putting the puzzle pieces together, and I was like, it's really interesting when we are on social media, we're seeing like the highlight reel of everyone's like idealized version of themselves or their lives. Um, and I kept on having conversations with people in real life and asking them like, how are you? Like, what's going on? And they would say like, I'm really depressed. Like I'm really depressed. And then I go through their Instagram feed and it was just all like, yeah, everything, yeah, oh, like I'm on the beach, I'm here, I'm doing
Mm.
this, whatever. And I kind of conceived of this project called Being Human. And the concept was just like, if if we're on social media and we're all kind of playing this game, we're talking it up, we're being kind of dishonest. What would it be like if we were just all just like brutally honest for just one moment? Um, and I think in some ways we're kind of at the apex of this kind of wave that we've been on with social media and the like increasing integration of technology into like every single aspect of our life, to the point where now your toaster can talk to you and tell you that you're out of butter from your smart fridge, and it can order it on Amazon before you even um we've gained so much, like we gained so much in terms of convenience and access and immediacy and communications, but there's a cost. And I think that people are beginning to understand the the toil that it takes, like Micah's saying, needing to go on a silent retreat to get away from this like constant barrage of information, um, and the realization that to be fed all of this information, or to feed ourselves with all of this information so consistently, does mean that we diminish the amount of time that we're spending doing things like this, like actually in conversation with other people. So I think that there is a growing hunger alongside, like even I have this incredible friend who is like a psychologist and a neuroscientist, and we were having a conversation the other day that there's a study that came out recently that was saying that um, like social media and like the algorithm is having an actual effect on our brain, and the health costs are more extraneous than smoking, like heavy smokers. So we're gonna get to a point where we're starting to see the manifestation of some of these like um, illnesses that we're cultivating in ourselves. And I think you spoke to the anxiety that you felt last year, and I can definitely echo and sympathize with that. Um, I've had my own journey with like um, bipolar since I was quite young, and so like I've been aware of what effect different things have on my mental state. And it was maybe 4, 5 years ago where I just kind of was like, okay, I'm, I'm at my point. I've reached my peak of like trying to play the Instagram game, trying to keep on figuring out, okay, how's the algorithms changed? When do I need to be put? And I was just like, no, you know what? This is not good for my health. And I kind of took a step back. Um, and started to try and introduce, more somatic practice, more meditation, more mindfulness, and different things that were actually going to feed me. Because the reality was, feeding the algorithm was antithetical to feeding my creativity. Like so much of the time spent on Instagram was actually sucking the time that I used to spend just masticating ideas, just like thinking about, okay, if I wanted to say something, what would I really want to say? And then how would I want to say that? Or just like, even like to speak to what you're saying about being on the train, I'm trying to train myself. I carry my camera. I had my camera on the way home with me. Actually, I was taking a couple of pictures, but like I carry my camera with me most of the time, and I'm trying to hold my camera in my hand rather than hold my phone, um, because it's such a fertile environment to to just catch those moments, and particularly people who are not on their phone in a sea of people who are, um, and to contrast the difference.
So book three.
Yeah, yeah, it could be tethering tunnels.
People not on their phone,
Yeah,
amongst a sea of people on the phone.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I think we are. I think and there's a lot of different ways that this is working out. Like the return of the cassette tape. Have you seen that? Um, People are getting back into cassettes. People are getting back into various different types of analog technology because
Hmm.
there's a recognition that like we've traded something, and there was value in some of the slower technologies that we had, some of the slower moments, and we need to kind of recapture some of that
Yep.
space.
Yeah, that again is the massive cliche word, but that journey is really. I'm not going to sit here and reel off my nostalgic stories. I've got many. Being a child of pre-internet, you
Hmm.
know, which again is neither good nor bad. But some of the upsides of that was the scarcity. My cultural horizons were limited to about five things. It was
Yeah.
like Blur, Leeds United, and a number of things. But I had such limited access to those things that I
Hmm.
really had to seek it out. I had to save my money to buy the magazines and
Hmm.
choose the one with the best photograph in there to cut out and put in my scrapbook. I had to get a friend to copy me a tape. All of these things that necessitate connection
Hmm.
of some kind. That when you speak of that trade-off, I think that's really important, isn't it? When everything is
Hmm.
there, well, as we know, anything in mass abundance loses its meaning quite quickly because it's so ubiquitous and not necessarily. That's not a okay. It's not always. There'll be exceptions to that. Of course, there will. But I just this idea of growing up with everything here right now in my pocket.
Hmm.
when I think of the loss of all that magic that I had from finding those things and having to, build the courage and all those other things to do that, that's a sad thought. So, yeah, how do we find a balance between the joys of technology and that? And just to bring it back to the book, I really think you've laid the groundwork for many great conversations around that, and I don't think we should underestimate the power of of art to do that. I think it's critical, and Harris, you'll probably know this better than most within the work that you do with the young people, and I'm a great believer in this. But my word, I think those young people who are growing up in this world with the ubiquity of technology and that the mental health crisis, I personally think that art has got a huge role to play
Yeah.
in supporting that and helping them to see, you know, opportunities in the world. Because for the longest time, I would see all these people on their phone, and my negative brain, as we all are partial to as humans, would take me down this dystopian imagining of something far darker than it needed to be. But seeing the work that you guys have done reminds me that any situation that makes us feel that way is also ripe for creative expression and actually finding some great curiosity and a point of view in that.
There's a line in the book that says, "The future might have other ideas. The future
Love
might
that
have
one.
other ideas."
Yes.
Yeah.
Just in that you think you're going down this tunnel a particular way, but or a worry, will take you a particular place, a dark place. But it's often not those things that come true anyway. So, this idea that, you know, there's hope or there's something alternative to what you're already imagining.
It's powerful. I had the Lord of the Rings audiobook on in the car recently. Long car drive, a nice moment of, just me, no one, no demands.
Hmm.
And I was just coming out the other side of this anxiety that I speak of. And to bring Gandalf into this, which feels ridiculous, but also kind of relevant, it just said, talking to Frodo, and said, even the wise cannot see all ends. And I loved that. And at that time, that really it hit me. It really hit me. It was kind of like, yes, remember to pull your head out of your ass and not be in these doom spirals and not, like you said there, not take everything as black and white as the way it's maybe painted in the headlines. And yeah, I never have to look too much further than creativity and my own agency to present those feelings and those experiences in a way that engages others and invites dialogue. That's always been incredibly exciting to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I appreciated what Harry said earlier about my work and Wembley and the fact that he felt it had a particular kind of like change to the environment or at least himself. And I've kind of been grappling with that whole idea myself this last few months. Um, I read How Minds Change recently as well to try and just get to the bottom of does any of this stuff that we're doing is creative? So at least for myself, I'm putting it out on the street and I'm hoping, am I just talking to the people that are already agreeing with what I'm doing, or am I kind of like having some agency and some have potential, change for people for the better? Um, and so the most recent piece that I did, which is the stickers, Love, Wisdom, Grace, and Hope. And I did an alternative to go alongside it. I think I got that from the book How Minds Change in terms of creating dialogue, we were just saying there. And I think, like you say, the book does that. It's a true coffee table book in that you can put it out on a kind of, an evening. You got your mates round or you're having dinner with another couple, and it can be there and spark that set of conversations because I think the dialogue is, if you're in your own head, sometimes the dialogue can just help pull you out, having someone hear you and where you are. And the dialogue can kind of like, you know, get another perspective. Oh, interestingly, the dialogue that I put up was an alternative to the positive that I'm used to putting up, but I wanted it rather than just the constant positive stuff. There's the other side that we all recognize, and I just put them both together in equal form. Um, um, Again, I mean that I feel like each of them are experiments, putting them out. Is it worth it? Is it, I do it because I want people to have a slightly brighter day. Um, and I hope that it causes that. Same with the book, same with people seeing Harris's work. Um, does it or not? I don't know. A couple of people say, "Oh, I like this," but when it goes out on the street or it goes in a bookshop and people take it away, you kind of have to leave it and let it go
Yeah.
and trust and hope. And if not, you had a good time making it and do another one and keep on moving.
I
I
think
think it.
I think
Oh, sorry, Harris.
sorry,
Go
go
ahead.
on, Ben. No, go on, go on, go on.
No, no, no. You go.
I was gonna say that I think great art lives many lives. There's the moment where I take a picture and it means something to me, and I've seen something in that moment, and then I share it with you, um, and you create something new, um, by combining it with your art, and now it has new meaning and it has new life. And then a viewer, a reader takes the book away, and at different seasons, I think they could come back to the same image and the same statement and experience completely different things.
Mm.
Um, and I think that the challenge and the skill is to create art that has enough breath in it, and enough space for people to take it in and to take from it what they need. And that can change over time. Um,
That echoes Barry's forward in um, the second book.
uh,
Barry Taylor talks AC/DC's roadie. That Barry Taylor, he
Oh,
did the
really?
forward for us. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
um, he
yeah.
he wrote the forward based on uh, Roland Barthes, um, kind of citing that and commenting on how many photos exist in the world today because of Instagram and the rest of it.
Mhm.
But there will be one that captures you, and that kind of like
Mm. Mm.
living lives. And I think the photography that you do, not every photo, I think every photo is brilliant, but
Mm.
there'll be one that just
Yeah.
really hits you. But for somebody else, it'll be a different photo, but it'll hit them.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, you're totally right.
Have either of you heard of Jack Hilton, author?
No.
This guy's from, I think, from Salford. Stumbled across his book in Waterstones. I had some vouchers and I got it as a chance purchase. But basically, this guy, what he fought in, well, was he in World War One? Terrible. I bring this up and then I have no idea how to tell the story. But basically, this guy was a plasterer in Salford. He wrote this book. I think it was his experience of World War One, and but the story is this book got lost for time. He went back to being a plasterer afterwards by choice. He could have carried on writing, but he just loved his work and the connection it brought him as a plasterer. So he went back to doing that. Long since passed away, and this book has been recently rediscovered by someone who knew his wife and
Mm.
went out of his way because he thought his book was so powerful to get it republished. So now it's back out, and we're talking over 100 years
Mm.
after the fact.
Yeah.
That's, to me, there's power in that,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the fact that someone cannot be here with us on this earth, but
Mm.
the energy they felt and the art that they made lives on and is finding a whole new audience. I'm not
Mm.
young, but at 43, I'm young enough to sort of, there's a part of me is like, wow, this is magic that this even exists now in my time, in
Mm.
my world, but it does and it can. And I think
Mm.
that you're right, Michael. We can never know. I think there's something about just surrendering to that fact that we will never know and can and should
Yeah.
never know, but it can be out there having an effect that we might never know about. And for me, that's enough reason to keep doing it. And I would even strip that back even further because I've said to many people recently who've been going through tough times and sort of feeling powerless because of our current moment and the news cycle and everything else. But just not, you don't know what a smile to a person in the street. To put this in the context of your book,
Yeah.
to look up from our phones and smile at a person who's passing us in the morning might profoundly change that person's day depending on what they're going through. And
Mm.
then who knows what they're going to go on and do with their day as a result of that, or not as a result of that. I don't know. There's riddles in this, but I think, do you get my point? It's
Oh
like we
yeah,
can't
absolutely.
Yeah.
ever know the
Absolutely.
effect of one tiny, tiny action. But I think that
Th-
art is a beautiful example of action. So I do think there's always worth.
Yeah. That reminds me of this is going back probably 15 years ago. I had this old blog and I would put up photographs and sometimes write. poetry or just write a little bit about, the process of making the image. And it was, barely anyone knew it existed, and I just kind of did it as a kind of creative practice to think through my own work and to put my stuff somewhere. Um, and I was kind of going back and forwards uh, as to whether there was any point in it. Because it was taking up quite a lot of time, and it was, it was effort and all the rest of it, blah 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 blah. But I remember getting this email one day from this woman who lived in Chicago. She said, "I've been reading your blog. I've been following it for ages. I've just read your latest post, and I'm writing to you while I'm sitting here in tears." And she was just telling me about like her son had been addicted to drugs, and he was in and out of rehab, and she felt like she was losing him, and something about the work. I don't even remember what image it was or what piece of writing it was, but something about the work had just kind of cracked through all of that reality in her life and just given her hope. And she said she shared it with her son, and they had this like moment of connection. And she just said, "I just wanted to write to you and say thank you, and just to encourage you to keep on doing what you're doing." Um, and I think for me, like I've had a number of different moments like that. Sometimes my work, sometimes other people's, but it's a reminder that you just don't know where your art is going to go. You don't know what your art is going to do. And even if you create something with a particular purpose, there's something very generous and very sacrificial about putting your art out into the world and just allowing it to reach whoever is going to take hold of it, um, and letting it be for them what they need in that moment. You know, I didn't sit down and create something because I thought I want to help someone on the other side of the.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It's just like art, like you said, Ben. Art has this power to it, to crack through the reality of our moments, be they national or just interpersonal.
Mm-hmm.
And so for those of us who have the kind of the sickness to create, we just got to give ourselves over to it, and to keep on encouraging ourselves that like success can be those moments, where we've just impacted someone's life.
Yep. There are many. I once did an episode on this show called The Thread, and it was about that. It was about the sheer. There was no way that I could predict any number of threads that had happened as an onward
Mm,
ripple effect of just doing
mm,
something and putting it into the world. Most importantly, something that I felt something for. This isn't just about throwing
mm,
any old thing out there. This is always in relation to things that have personal meaning and give me that wonderful feeling of illumination that make me want to get out of bed in the morning.
mm,
I find that I don't have the words for it. Maybe it's metaphysical, maybe it's deeper than that, but there's just something that when you feel that. I had a friend who told me the term invisible hands that was coined by Joseph Campbell, talked about that feeling of being helped along a path that was already there. And I love that because when you're in that creative flow and you are connected to the work and it has personal meaning, I've
mm,
always found that there's just this incredible scope for serendipity and
mm.
doors opening. I can't describe it any better than that, but things happen,
Yeah.
and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And that alone is enough to keep me going on the days when I do sit there and think, is anyone listening to this podcast? Or is
Yeah.
anyone reading that thing that I've just written? Maybe not, but
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. One will be enough.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice to have the numbers, but yeah,
Yeah.
because that one could ripple.
Yeah,
I did
exactly
this
that.
I did this exercise a while ago, because I got myself in this kind of place of like debilitation. Like I just couldn't create anything because I had all of this expectation and everything on it. Um, so I would create pieces, just like as quickly as I could. And the one rule that I had was that when I finished it, I had to just give it away.
Mm,
So sometimes I'd be, on the tube or in a meeting or whatever, but I'd just be making these pieces and giving them away. And a lot of them I thought were absolutely pants, like really terrible, like paintings or poems or mixtures of the two. But without fail, when I gave them to people, they would hold them and they would cry. And then they would begin to tell me what it meant, what every line meant, or what that color that I'd chosen meant, or what this represented, what that represented. And that exercise really instilled in me, you have a taste, you have a style, you have preferences, but those aren't shared by everyone. So you don't have to like a piece of work in order for it to be good. You don't have to feel all of the magic of creation when you're making something in order for that piece of work to be meaningful. And I think that there's some real value in us putting out work even when we don't feel like it's amazing, because we like we've said, we just never know where it's going to go. I think that the challenge for me is like, be faithful to the craft of creating, and be faithful to the call of connecting with people, through the work, and then let the work do what it's going to do. Um, there's work that I love, but there's a lot of work that I don't love that's out there that people have told me that's like, been pivotal for them. So
That's profound, Harris. That exercise is gorgeous in its own right, but yeah, you've yeah opened something up there. That's no, that's truly great because you're right. Yeah, I mean, it's getting into. I don't want to sort of bore us with a rant about perfectionism now, but that's yeah, the
yeah,
vulnerability, honesty, and but also just sharing,
yeah,
making and sharing. You know.
yeah. I think that the feeling that you described, like, that is for you, that's for me. Like, when we create the work and we get that and we hit that flow, that's the gift that our work has for us. But actually, when we put our work out, when we give it away, it our art is for other people. It
Mm,
does much more in them than it does in us. So by all means, like, chase that wonderful feeling that we've all experienced, like when we create something that we're really connected to. But yeah, my encouragement to anyone listening is like, never let the deficit of that feeling stop someone else encountering the magic of your work. And you
I
don't
mean,
have to
yeah,
like it for that to happen.
yeah. You've mentioned the I don't know what you call it, the four themes and their alternatives that
Mm,
a lot of the quotes are based around the phrases that I use the photos and the words together to create some new words. And yeah, they're effectively the four pillars of capitalism being
mm,
privatization, scarcity, perfection, and certainty. Um, and then, so you just mentioned perfection and the kind of like ancient kind of alternative would be fallibility. Um,
mm,
and there's a line that I wrote that just fallibility is a beautiful gift. I think it's that, and it's
mm,
yeah.
kind of echoing what you're saying there. That,
mm,
and I wouldn't have made anything if I waited to perfect till I felt it was perfect.
yeah.
I really wouldn't have put anything out because I don't. I mean, maybe it's yeah. What's the word when you don't rate yourself? What's the there's a oh, yeah. So I don't think half my work's that good, you know,
Mm,
but I put it out
Yeah.
because I need to get it out. Some of it I can see now it's on a par and standard with kind of like uh, other creatives who I respect, but I look at them. The piece that I did recently, I looked at it and I thought I just had to get it out. And if I wait
Mm,
and I spend hours, and me and Nick Chafe were chatting the other day about how great it would be to like just plow hours and hours and hours and hours into a craft to create something. And here's me banging out like stuff in, these stickers or whatever in a short space of time. And I totally admire the artworks that have that craftsmanship. I think it's amazing to see. And I wish I had something in me that I could just paint. I mean, I painted over this book, it's a different kind of craft, but it's not,
mm,
it's kind of digital and it's photographic. And I do paint over the text and stuff. But yeah, this piece that I did that said love, wisdom, grace, and hope on the stickers. And then I had the alternative. I spent some time on that. And then I did the design. I was like, bish, bash, bosh, get that out. If I wait too long, I won't
mm,
do it, and it
mm,
needed to
mhm,
go. And it's
mhm,
okay. Now I look at it, it's on the billboard on the side of the building, with the ad art projects that I run. I put one up myself. It's not got my name on it, but I'm telling everybody now, so it defeats the object anyway. But it's there, and I'm looking at it going, I should have done that in colour. Like, it's black and white. Yeah, it's all right in black and white. I should have done it in colour. And then I'm looking at it again. It's mocked up like it's a sticker and it's peeling off. And I'm like, I should have done that as if the billboard was peeling down at the back. And but I didn't think of it. But at the same time, it exists because of my lack of need for perfection. I think I have to, almost every time I have to go, no, it doesn't have to be perfect. Go. Obviously, I have to get to a standard, especially when we're working with clients. But the artwork type stuff, it's it's a bit of a fight, and obviously perfection, fallibility, social media, all of that, it's all tied up, and should have thrown a few mistakes into the book. In fact, I spotted one today. One,
Really.
one, yeah. I mean, it's just it's not a type thing. It's just the layout of it. I was like, oh, that used to be there. That would have looked better. Just in the way the word flowed down the page, where the carriage return should go. But no one would know. Probably think I've done it on purpose. And like you say, maybe someone's touched by the fact that I put that word to the right rather than below.
You just don't know.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look, this has been an absolute pleasure. Like, I adore this project. I think this book, I think it's an important body of work. I think the messaging in there is very pertinent for this current moment. And it's certainly helped elevate my own recent sort of crusade of being present. So thank you for making it. Is it available? Can people get it?
If you're in Manchester, you can get it from Whitworth Gallery or a couple of different shops. Seesaw have some, Village Books and Unitom, and then my website. If you're in London, Harris has a few too.
Super. Well, it's been a joy to talk you through, and I'm excited to see, what happens between you two next. See if there's any more collaborations.
Yes.
Let's get it.
Thanks for having us, Ben.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Love chatting.
Ben. It's been a really good time, really good conversation.
No, my pleasure. Likewise, and you really have rocked me, Harris, with that exercise. I've got a lot to go away and think about now. That's
yeah. You got to keep me posted. I want to see your version of it. For sure.
No, it's just. I mean, just a little bit on that. So I recently went. I went through my old hard drive and I dug out as much as I could find of my very first portfolio from 2008 when I first went to market. It was quite an emotional experience, and I ended up envying a lot of that work in a weird way because I'd become more technically accomplished over the years, but there was an antagonism and a restlessness and a anger to some of that work that it was. I couldn't believe I'd taken it to market. There was some edgy stuff in there, but the point was that a lot of it was built on feeling, and it was a lot of commentary on the world around me at that time. Whereas as the years have gone by, as you do, you get more client work, you put more client work in the portfolio. So it just nudged me a little bit from, this echo from 18 years ago to just loosen it up a little bit and just be a bit more fearless. And even one or two of those pieces I felt I might bring them back in actually, because there's a rawness to them. And, it's very interesting, isn't it? How you expect to go back and just kind of want to vomit because it's so bad. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of room for technical improvement, but there was just something, a naivety in that and an innocence almost that spoke to me across the years. So it's interesting how that plays out.
And I think that, isn't that what we need now? The kind of raw, honest, naive hopefulness of the creatives who can just shout to the powers. And speak to the things that are, threatening our peace. So,
yep, absolutely. Right, well, brilliant. This has been fun. So thank you again. And we'll have to get a drink if we're all in the same place at the same time.
Absolutely.
Nice one. Love to.
I couldn't love that conversation anymore. Harris and Micah Purnell. So joyed that they were able to join me and share all that wisdom, and I had my mind blown on several occasions, and they are two of my kind of people who think deep, who probably struggle as a result of thinking deep, but ultimately I like to think get richness in the world, get connected, get properly connected. when I used to share a studio building with Micah in Manchester, he was a regular face at the Kettle. You know, we had our own space within the building. We had our own little individual unit in M1, an old cotton mill in Manchester, converted into business units and art studios and the likes. Rare places to come by these days, especially in the smaller towns and cities. But Michael would be there at the Kettle, and he'd always have something that was funny or some piece of wisdom. And I remember his first book, he gave me a copy of it called These Thoughts of Ours, a collection of over 80 sayings by Micah Purnell. And I've got a copy here. I'm going to read you a couple. Dead simple. Really small. My eyes are pixeled. I love it. Imagine a future alternative to your imagination. Really, really beautiful stuff. Love, don't say it, show it. Oof. Oof, oof, oof. But Mike is a great guy. I miss sharing with him. But the glory of what we do is we always remain connected. Once you're in somebody's creative ecosystem and you connect over something that's real rather than commercial. You know, we all do our commercial work. We have to do. We mentioned it there in the conversation. But we really bond when it comes to the stuff that we're making that's got meaning for us personally. And the two can be one and the same. Of course they can. But I think for most of us, it's projects like Tethering Presence, you know, that enable us to express how we're feeling in the world, our thoughts, our observations, and that's what really makes for friendships and for meaningful immersion, in my opinion. So there you have it. What are you working on? Tell me, get in touch, ben@bentalon.com. If you get a second, please do rate, review, subscribe to the show. I know it's the boring stuff us podcasters have to say, but it really does help to get us noticed out there. And the numbers have been growing again recently. It's steady progress for this show. I've been doing it 11 years now. And I'm just in love with talking about creativity, so I'll always be doing it to some capacity. But thank you. If you're a long-term listener, welcome. If you're new, I hope you like what you hear. But ultimately, let's get into it. Share your thoughts. Let's have this creative collaboration. Let's make creativity something at the core of a new era, you know, for humans. I think for the species to truly progress, we have to be attuned with our creativity. Anyway, if you want to get into this stuff personally and work with me as a coach, that's what I do, as well as illustrate and write. So give me a shout, ben@bentalon.com, or check out all the info at thecreativecondition.com/coach. You can also find all my resources there, the free stuff, the podcast archive, the reading list, the articles. It's all there for you guys to consume and grow in your creativity. I offer the coaching because I like to help people on a personal level. I love getting deep, immersing, one-to-one, pit stop session, longer programs. If you want to invest in yourself, if you want to work with me and elevate that journey, let's do it. Let's do it together. Get in touch. Nice one, guys. Big thank you to Illustration X, the Paradiso Institute and the Ukrainian Institute for supporting this show. Check them out at illustrationx.com, paradisoinstitute.org and ui.org.ua. Have a great week. Stay creative. Take care.